The Nintendo Wii. Nintendo's entry into the 7th generation of video game consoles, and a console that to this day is regarded as a fan favorite. While it didn't have the HD graphics that its competitors, the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 had, it had a unique mechanic helping it stand out. That being the concept of motion controls. With the console's controller, the Wii Remote, you could move around the controller and have it reflect in-game, allowing you to do things such as play sports or drive a go-kart without having to rely on a bunch of buttons. While there are several examples of games that did this mechanic well, there's one game that sometimes flies by people's radars that uses motion control functionality in the most creative way. Releasing in 2006 and 2007 was a game called WarioWare Smooth Movies. In this episode of Cartridges and Consoles, we'll take a look at this wacky yet crazy fun Wii game and see how its motion control functionality made it a welcome addition to the console, but also how it has its flaws that sometimes drag it down. WarioWare Smooth Moves was the 4th mainline entry in the WarioWare series and the first one for home consoles, if you exclude the port of the first game to the GameCube. The series is mainly focused on the concept of microgames, which are very short and simple mini-games. Your goal within a roughly 5 to 10 second window is to learn everything about the microgame at hand, the clear condition, the controls, etc., and beat it before time runs out. Additionally, each of the microgames in each mainline game following the first relies on a certain gimmick. For example, WarioWare Twisted requires you to twist the system around to move, and WarioWare Touched made use of the DS touchscreen. Smooth Moves makes full advantage of the capabilities of the Wii Remote, or as the game describes it, the form baton. You will be required to hold the Wii Remote in specific positions in order to complete specific microgames. These positions range from holding it like a bicycle handle, to putting it on your head like it's a mohawk, to even not holding it at all. You'll use all of these forms to play through a variety of microgames as you complete all 11 main microgame sets. There's even an extra microgame set which uses the nunchuck, which here is referred to as the balance stone. Additionally, you have 5 microgame sets that mix up several microgames you've played throughout the game. These being the Calorimeter, where you have to complete 20 high movement-based microgames to burn off calories, all mixed up, which has every microgame you've played before jumbled up, Super Hard, where every microgame is played at maximum speed, Sudden Death, which has you playing the hardest microgame difficulty with only 1 life, and Thrilling, which doesn't tell you the form baton position ahead of time. There's also extra minigames related to some microgames, and a multiplayer mode where you can take on microgames with your friends. Now there's a lot of positive aspects that Smooth Moves has, other than starring the most handsome man on planet Earth, Wario. For one, the game has an iconic style that, while consistent with other WarioWare titles, stands out on the Nintendo Wii. All the microgames have a variety of different art styles to them, with some looking choppy and unfinished, which makes sense in lore as these are supposed to be games created by Wario and his friends. This choppiness and varying art style, whether intentional or not, helps provide a unique look that makes Smooth Moves stand out, and makes the game more memorable overall. Alongside this, the entire game is oozing with charm, personality, and humor. Each form baton technique is prefaced with a description that includes a funny joke pertaining to position, all the cutscenes are memorable in their own right, and even the microgames themselves can crack a laugh or two out of you if you don't expect what's coming. Additionally, the game is chock full of Easter eggs, mostly in 9Volt's game set, which is dedicated to retro Nintendo games, and there's even special sounds that come out of the Wii Remote speaker for specific microgames. Heck, even the manual for the game has lots of jokes spread throughout it, helping add on to the game's humor. I especially love the part where it specifies you should be standing 15 to 30 apples away from your television to play properly, confirming that Wario is a true American and doesn't believe in the metric system. Alongside all of this, the game's local multiplayer modes also help the game a ton. There are 4 multiplayer game types, which vary from a simple last player standing mode to a luck-based rope cutting challenge where the less microgames you beat, the more likely defeat is. 3 of these modes allow for up to 5 players at once, with the last one allowing for up to 12 players, making this one of only 2 games developed by Nintendo, allowing for over 8 players locally at once. This makes it so WarioWare Smooth Moves is one of the best games to whip out at parties or family gatherings and can provide a fun experience with a massive group. However, no good game is without its flaws, and other than looking like an absolute idiot when you play this and raising more questions than answers to anyone that's watching, the game sadly suffers from some. One of which is mostly an early Wii game issue, which is the clunky motion controls. Sometimes the Wii Remote's movement will not be read properly, and while here it's not the worst, it still can cost you a life or several if you can't find a way to get it working as intended. Along with this, the game's campaign mode definitely can come off as a bit too short. While it's good if you want a quick game to beat, even then, the game can be finished within an hour if you're fast enough. Yes, there are the extra modes after you beat the story, but it still feels like the game needs more content overall. However, some of the biggest issues with the game for me revolve around the multiplayer functionality. While yes, you can play with up to 12 people, there is a catch. Everyone has to share one controller.
Why?
While this isn't new to Nintendo, as Anticipation was a 4-player game that used 2 controllers, for example, the Wii allowed for 4 controllers at once, yet here you're only allowed to use 1. While I can commend the effort to find a way to make it so you have a lot of people playing at once, trying to share a single Wii Remote between 12 people is more sketchy than Wario's financial records.
Sir, you realize these documents are heavily crumpled, slightly torn, and are filled in with purple crayon, right?
Plus, you need to have a game profile for every player you want to play with in order to even play the multiplayer modes. This is probably because each player profile has a set dominant hand they use, but it still would have been good to just play with guests instead of making new profiles for everyone every time. Overall, WarioWare Smooth Moves should be considered one of the Wii's best pioneer titles for pushing the motion control mechanic. It is a game that is absolutely ludicrous at its core, yet it is said core that provides a super fun experience that will leave you smiling every step of the way. However, the game is far from perfect, with some of the issues coming from the gimmick it relied on, and others coming from limitations it really didn't need. But that being said, it still is a great game to play alone or with friends if you're looking for some plain old fun. WarioWare Smooth Moves on the Nintendo Wii gets my rating of 8 cartridges out of 10.